Welcome, everyone. My name is Ismael Chivite, and along with Jett, we are going to talk about ArcGIS AI assistants. We also want to welcome people joining online. I think we have people online. So in this session, we are going to talk, but you can also ask questions, okay? So if you have a question, you just raise your hand anytime, and we'll take as many as we can. Same online, you will be monitoring, right? Excellent. Okay, let's go. ArcGIS assistants. Oh, by the way, I'm required to tell you that if you use the app to submit your feedback, we will be much happier, all of us. Actually, we will, because we really look at your feedback, and then we can do better next year. As you know, ArcGIS is being enhanced with AI, and we apply AI to different problems. There is this business of building geo-AI tools to work with geospatial data. There is this other business of building AI assistants. This is really about the experience of using ArcGIS applications. And we are also working towards AI agents. All of them are important in their own way, but in this session, we are only going to talk about assistants. That's why we are all here. So the idea with assistants is to embed AI into the experience of our ArcGIS products to make them easier to use and to help people become better users. We do have assistants across many different applications. You can see the list on the right. And it has a ... at the end because we are working with different teams to bring more assistants to even more applications. In this session, we are going to give you a tour so you can see many of these assistants, not all, but many, and understand what's our philosophy behind building such assistants. This is our release plan for the assistants, and I want to bring this up soon so you understand that at this moment, all of them are in beta. So this is great timing to start playing with them, understanding what they do, and provide Esri with feedback, because together we can get these assistants where we really want to take them together. Now, if you look at the third column, that will be June this year, we are going to gradually start graduating some of these assistants into general availability. This is the release plan for online. This is the release plan for enterprise. How many of you want to use assistants in enterprise? Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so the good news is, even if you have 12.0, you can now test assistants, okay? We have one assistant. You're going to see it, the item details assistant. But the big release for assistants in enterprise is going to be November this year. We will be having a few of them, beta, as you can see here, in 12.2. Now, some of you with enterprise can connect to ArcGIS Online. You already do this, right? Like you use ArcGIS Online for base maps to connect to the routing service. So similarly, these assistants require help from an ArcGIS Online service. In 12.2, we will give you a choice to either power the assistants with the large language model we have in ArcGIS Online or an LLM from your own subscription, if that's your preference. If you look at the last column, that will be June next year. That's when the assistants will go into GA. So we still have plenty of time to learn about these assistants, what they do, and how we roll them out within the organization. I want to spend just a minute talking about licensing, because this question comes all the time. Some of you are thinking, oh, is this going to cost ArcGIS Online credits? That's not what we are thinking. The official announcement and definite announcement for pricing will be in June at the users conference. But I can anticipate to you now that our intent is to bring assistants as part of user types. So if you have a user type, you are going to have the assistants included. Now, naturally, if you have a higher level user type, like professional or professional plus, the assistants are going to have more capabilities. Like it is a standard in the industry, we are going to have quotas, usage quotas, okay? So if you plan to use the assistants absolutely all the time, the way to go is to upgrade to higher level user types where the quota will be bigger. Is that making sense? Yeah? Do you think it's fair? Yes? Okay. So first, I'm going to talk about how you enable AI assistants in your organization. Because the thing is, these assistants use generative AI. They leverage a large language model to do what they do. And in many organizations, you don't even have authorization to use generative AI. So we thought this is the safest way to go, okay? The assistants are by default off, and the administrator, not the user, but the administrator in the organization needs to enable AI assistants. So this is the organization setting. As you can see, only administrators can have access to this. So you will come here and enable the assistants in your org. Because the assistants, many of them are in beta, you also want to make sure that you are not blocking beta users. Beta capabilities. And finally, and this is new, we added a new AI assistance role privilege. We added this by popular demand because people said, having the switch is fine, but it's not good enough, right? It's not granular enough. I want to decide who in my organization can access the assistance. So as you can see in this animation, as an administrator, I can go into settings, go into assistants, enable assistance for the org, but also, and this is new, I go into the member roles, I select a role, and then I can turn off or on the AI assistance privilege, right? So if John and Sally have been trained on using AI assistants and you trust them, you give them this role, right? This privilege. Otherwise, you take it away. Now, people in your organization are going to have questions about, are you going to enable assistants? Let me check. How is Esri using generative AI? Will Esri use your prompts to train AI models? Will Esri sneak in and steal data and train AI models? These are true concerns that people are going to have. So we have in trust.arcgis.com information that can help people in your organization with these paranoid questions, right, with answers. On top of that, we also have these transparency cards, which describe the type of models that these assistants use, the type of workflows that are within scope and outside of a scope, etc. Very useful information that people in your organization are going to read, okay? So just so I reinforce some of these ideas, I'm going to give you a quick demo. Here, I'm looking at the help, okay? This is the online help for ArcGIS Online. If you look here, this button is for an assistant, so I can click on it, and you will see that this assistant is going to help you get answers for ArcGIS documentation. So to use the assistant, you need to sign in, okay? So I'm going to sign in here with my credentials. You don't need to be an admin. This could be anyone with a user type. You sign in into your org. So this is now checking with the organization to see if assistants are enabled or not. So let's wait a little bit. Right? And you can see that in this case, it's telling me the documentation assistant is not available. Why? Because in my org, assistants have not been enabled. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to log in as an administrator in the ArcGIS Online organization. I go into organization. Then I go into settings, and now I go into AI assistants. This is a new org setting. And then I come here and I say enable. So at this moment, assistants are on in my org. Now, additionally, I could go into the member roles section right here, and then the default roles that come with the software from Esri, they all have assistants on. Okay, but if you create a custom role, like for example this one, you can go and edit the privileges and go into assistants and decide if this particular role is going to have access to assistants or not. Yeah? Okay, so next I'm going to go back into this web browser and I'm going to refresh the screen, and now you see, now it lets me in. Okay, so it checks the assistants are on, so I can proceed and I can ask questions. So I can say, tell me about assistants in ArcGIS Online, for example, right? So this is an assistant for the documentation that enables you to use natural language to check our doc. It actually browses through the doc, blogs, videos, and much more. So this is on right now. You can actually use it, but you need to enable assistance in the org. Okay, so with that, I'm going to now go and show you a few of these assistants in how they work. So assistants are at different levels of maturity at this moment. Some of them are private beta, others are in beta, and others are in preview. This notion of preview is kind of new. It's a stage in between beta and general availability. Really, anything in preview is functionally the same as you will find it in GA. They have been thoroughly tested. We feel like they can go GA anytime. They are fully documented, functionally complete. The security baseline for these features has been validated, and the transparency card is available. The only thing that is missing is the pricing. The pricing has not been finalized, okay? So there are a few of those in preview. The first one is the Business Analyst Assistant, okay? It's in preview. This is an in-app assistant to help users really get started with the product. How many of you have used Business Analyst? Yeah, quite a few of you. So if I go into Business Analyst, I'm going to open Business Analyst for a second here. This is Business Analyst. So we haven't changed BA. You have the menus, the tools, you can use BA as you have done in the past. Now, additionally, we have added this option here, the assistant, right? So if you click on the assistant, this is really meant for people that are totally new. What is BA all about? Well, BA allows you to create maps of different variables, the geodemographic variables. You can create reports. You can search for points of interest. You can also compare different areas and find and filter locations. So as you can see, this is part of the assistant. Say you want to create a map. So you come here in and say, well, I want to create a map of income in, say, Palm Springs. So I'm going to type that in, and then the assistant basically helps me navigate the user experience. I don't need to know where are the buttons and the tools. I simply ask the question and it guides me. So it tells me I can help you visualize, whatever variables as a color-coded map. And notice here that I said income, but there are multiple variables associated with income, right? So I can choose and say, well, I'm really looking for the aggregate household income. And then I go and say, create the map. So again, the assistant is not really bringing new functionality into the application. It's simply helping me navigate the application as it is. So here is the map that was created, through the assistant. Yeah, is that making sense? So these are tools that are really excellent tools for onboarding people more quickly into these tools, which at first could feel a little bit intimidating, too many buttons. So that's the BA Analyst Assistant. By the way, it does a lot more things, right? But we're going to keep moving, or otherwise we won't have time for all the things I want to show. Survey123 has also an assistant. In this case, the idea is to help people create forms. And you can create these forms through natural language. We're going to see a demo. The assistant also has capabilities to help you translate your forms into multiple languages. So you put your initial form in French, and then you say, I want to translate to German, to Italian, to Spanish. And the assistant will help you with that process. Now, as you will see, our philosophy with the assistants, the philosophy is that they are not going to do things for you. They are going to guide you through the process. So let me tell you, don't ever blame an assistant, right? The assistant is going to guide you, but ultimately you make the calls, and you're going to see how that works also here. So let's go into a web browser. I'm going to open Survey123, and I'm going to create a new survey. And then I'm going to come here into the assistant. Let me ask you, how many of you have used already the Survey123 assistant? Okay, a few of you. So here, in case you don't know, you can literally type here something like, create a survey to report hazardous trees in the city. And it will give you a suggestion, and you can have a conversation, right, to create the form. Today I'm going to show you something that is coming very soon, that is new. So here in a separate browser, you are looking at a form. This is the Transect survey form from NOAA. And you can see here an image of such a form. So I'm going to take I'm going to take this image literally, and I'm going to feed it into the assistant to create the form. So let me go back to the browser. Okay, and then let me, give me 1 second, because I need to do a secret trick here. Okay. And now, voila, magic. I go into the assistant, and there is a new option where I can essentially select the photo of the form, and then the assistant is looking at the photo and trying to identify all the questions in it to create a draft of such document, right? So you can see here that the assistant is already interpreting the information in the photo that I uploaded, and it got the title, the different types of questions. At this moment, the assistant is working towards translating these initial questions or mapping them into the question types in Survey 123, right? So it's trying to figure, oh, for this type of question, should I use a text question or maybe a drop-down list? So it's doing that, and here you can see the output, right? There is this represents a group of questions, and then this represents a date question, a numeric question, a time question, a select one question. So you can see here the design. I could ask more questions to the assistant and say, move this question up, add these additional choices to the list. But in my case, for simplicity, I said, no, go ahead and bring this over into the web designer. So you can see now the design, right, of the form, which, by the way, I could now come here and say, well, why don't you default to the submitting date? You can control here the usual stuff that you do with Survey 123, like calculations and things like that, right? Make sense? Yeah, question?
Is this deterministic, or would it give you a different answer if you did this tomorrow?
So the question is if this is deterministic, or will it give you a different answer tomorrow? There is some wiggle room. Sometimes it will make different decisions than others, but overall, they are all correct. Oh, let me show you the translation business. So this is in English, as you can already see, but on the side, we have this languages option. So here I can say, pick your language, whatever language you want here. So let's go with Spanish, since I'm somewhat familiar with it. And then go into the translation assistant, continue. This, by the way, is telling you, look, we are going to do our best as far as the translation is concerned. But ideally, once you have this translation in here, you will go and make modifications as you see fit, right? So you review this translation, and once, if you are happy, you just enable the preview, and you can see the survey now translated, okay? So if the translation is not 100% good, do not blame the assistant, because the responsibility of reviewing is yours. But this takes a lot of work away. The translation assistant that you just saw is also available in Instant Apps. If you use Instant Apps, you can do this, right? When you translate these forms or these Instant Apps, there is a language switcher. I'm going to show you here. In this animation, you can see it, right? And this is the same in Survey. There is a language switcher that you can flip so people can see the application or the form in different languages. So for accessibility, this is actually quite nice, isn't it? Okay, StoryMaps has an assistant. It's also in preview. And this one, it does a few interesting things. This screenshot here about this story, it really summarizes the entire story map into a short paragraph. It gives you the word count, the sentiment, the tone, the estimated reading time. It even gives you a score for readability of your own text. But it does more things. For example, this one here, image options. Every time you add a photo into your story map, you can use this option to automatically create alternate text for better accessibility. So this is the text that screen readers will use to describe the content of the image for people who are visually impaired. And it can help you also refine the style and the tone of paragraphs. You can literally select a paragraph and say, make it a little bit shorter. Yes? That's already in the StoryMaps, and you can use it today if you activate assistants. Okay, now I'm going to move into assistants in beta. Unlike assistants in preview, beta software is not functionally complete, is not necessarily fully documented, there is no security baseline, there is no transparency card, okay? And the tech support is provided via sometimes Esri Community, sometimes early adopter, it really depends on the product. There are a few of those in beta, and I'm going to share with you a few thoughts. The documentation assistant you saw earlier, remember when I was asking about, tell me a little bit about assistants, right? So this is the doc assistant. This works across all products, with the only exception is the Maps SDK, okay? The documentation for Maps SDK doesn't have this. But any other product, like Drone2Map, ArcGIS Enterprise Online, all of them have the documentation assistant built in. So I want to emphasize that this is built on top of authoritative information from Esri, our product doc, the tutorials, blogs, and some technical articles. You can ask these questions elsewhere in Google Gemini, in GPT, but they may mix things, sometimes older versions of the software. This is like that, but founded on authoritative information. So I'll encourage you to give it a go. Again, pretty simple to use. The Arcade Assistant. This one, I find that is very, very powerful because some of the assistants I'm presenting are task-oriented, but this one is more about coding, right? It helps you write code, Arcade. And as you know, Arcade is used across many different Esri products. You can build Arcade expressions to create better labels in your maps, in Map Viewer. You can use them to do field calculations in the Data tab. You can use them in the web editor and many other places. So we are progressively expanding the assistant across all the products in Esri that use Arcade. Very recently, we released support for the assistant in Field Maps. So I'm going to give you here a brief demo on Field Maps Designer and the Arcade Assistant. Look, I have this map with two layers, the parks, which is a polygon layer, and the points in orange representing incidents. So I want to create a Field Maps project where whenever an incident is created, I want to use Arcade to do calculations, so people don't have to manually complete attributes. And what attributes are these? You can see them here. I am looking at the Field Maps Designer, and I'm building a smart form. In my form, I only have three attributes: the park name, the time of report, and the target resolution date. Okay? So I'm hoping that these three fields can be automatically populated. So let's go with the easiest one, the time of report. I go into the expression, I bring the Arcade editor, and this one is easy. I know that to get the current time, the function in Arcade is called now. I don't need an assistant for that. I know it by heart, so it's done. Now, the next one is going to be the park name. So the park name is more complex because I need to take the geometry of the point, do a point in polygon query against the parks, and fetch the park name. So for this, I'm going to use the assistant because really, I don't know how to write such an Arcade expression. So as you can see here, I literally typed in plain English, I want to populate this field with the name of the park. Please do a point in polygon query and fetch it. And it created these 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code. Yeah. The assistant. And you can see very clearly, it gets the first record that intersects with the geometry of the incident in the parks layer. And then the assistant figured that to get the name of the park, the value in the name attribute had to be fetched. Okay, the next one is the target resolution date. In this field, I want a date 3 days in the future, but they have to be 3 business days into the future. So you cannot count on holidays or Saturdays and Sundays. How many of you would you know how to do this in Arcade? Tell me, raise your hand if you are so brave. So that's why we are building the assistants. You go, you bring up the Arcade editor, and you figure, let's bring the assistant. And you literally type in, get the current date, and return a date 3 business days into the future. Do not consider Saturdays and Sundays. And here is the output. As you can see, in line 7 is taking the current date and is adding days to it, but not always. If the current day is 0, Saturday, or 6, Sunday, that's line number 10, then it skips. I personally actually played with this more, and I said, well, take these holidays for 2026 and also add them into the mix so they are not considered, and it did it, right? So this is a beautiful tool, not only to get the job done, but to learn a lot of Arcade. And to me, that's actually also a big value, like making me more proficient with the Arcade language. In fact, once you start building these things, if you don't know any Arcade, it's very dangerous. You need to be good enough to actually read the code, understand, and validate that it's good. Otherwise, we are not going very far. Yeah. So that's the Arcade Assistant. Again, we are doing this for other products. Oh, of course, we need to test this. So let's open the web map in the map viewer. You can see here I have the polygon, but I don't have an incident yet. So I'm going to create an incident. I will add it on top of the polygon, and look, the park name is Ford Park, the time of report, the target resolution date. These dates are in the past because you are not looking at a live demo. This is a recording that I did back in February. Is that making sense? Yes? You like it? Awesome. Okay, the Notebooks Assistant. This one is interesting too, because notebooks are really powerful. How many of you use notebooks today? A lot. How many of you don't? A lot too. Okay, so notebooks are really powerful because they give you a lot of flexibility to do many different tasks. This could be data engineering, analysis of data, the administration of GIS, and something I love about notebooks is that you can schedule these notebooks to run on regular intervals of time, right? So I will try to show you here a demo of the assistant that is currently available to all of you. So here I have let me check actually if the notebook is still alive. Seems like it is. Okay. So look, I have this feature layer with 311 service requests. And here you can see that I have the request date when the service request was created. I also have this status. It could be closed, it could be open. So all I want to do is I want to create a script that will check if this incident has been open for a very long time. And if that is the case, I'm going to add a note in the status notes for people to follow up, okay? And I want to run the script every day, right? So this information is kept up to date. So how would I do that in Notebooks? So I'm going to open Notebooks. Here in Code Snippets, I can click there, and there is, oh, it's not showing the assistant. Damn it. I know why. So when I loaded the notebook, I was kind of getting ready for the demo. I had the assistants off, so it didn't show. So maybe after refreshing, oh, voila, here it is, the assistant. So to your question, again, AI-generated code may occasionally be incorrect or biased. Review carefully, right? So you ask the question 10 times, you may get 10 answers, and likely 9.9 of them will be correct. Okay, so here again, just plain English. Let's just, for fun, say, show a list, including the names of every field in this layer. And voila, that's the the URL of the layer, right? So that layer, no coincidence, is this one. I literally took this URL and I brought it here into the notebooks assistant and say, create a list displaying all the fields. So here is the code. I'm going to enter the code here and I'll execute it. So if you look at the code, actually it's like very simple. It gets the item by ID, gets the first layer, and then creates a dictionary with all the field names, and then it prints all the field names. That's what I wanted, right? Okay, so let's do another one. In this case, what I want to do is I want to update every record in the layer. So the status value is set to, quote, alarm when the requested date time is older than 1 year and the status description is open. So you can see how we are kind of making prompts, questions that are a little bit more sophisticated, right? So this is now thinking and is trying to create that Python script. Again, you could do this in ChatGPT, but ChatGPT may use the ArcGIS API or not. And if it does, it may use a version that is actually not the one that you are currently using. So if we look at the code that was generated, again, we can kind of go through this. It connects to ArcGIS, gets the item, it figures out the where clause to get the rows that are older than 1 year, and then it creates an array to do the updates, and it does its thing, right? So to me, the beauty of all of this is that once you have all your logic created, in your notebook, you can save the notebook for future use, and even better, you can go into here, tasks, and then in tasks, you can say, create a new task. So my script is run, say, every day at midnight, and it does its thing, right? So you can schedule your work. So again, really, really powerful assistant to help you automate a lot of workflows. So again, this is in beta. I encourage you to try it out. In fact, every time you use this assistant, the notebooks assistant, you will see, I'm going to go back into the assistant. So here, you will see, let me open the preview, that you have the thumbs up and the thumbs down. This is the same in Arcade. When we create code, you can do the thumbs up, the thumbs down, and submit your feedback. And we want to hear. I know that most people do the thumbs down, like when you are unhappy, you are going to let us know. We love it. It's not, we don't love it when you are unhappy, but we love it when you are unhappy and you tell us. We really hate it when you are unhappy and we don't know. Because if you don't submit the feedback, it's really hard to improve. Okay, so that's for notebooks. Excited about it? Yes? No? Yep. Okay. We have an assistant for solutions. At this moment, the assistant was released a couple of weeks ago. I would describe this assistant as better search. Okay, you can use natural language to find solutions. But in June, at the users conference, this assistant will let you do much more interesting things. Once you find a solution, you'll be able to refine it, change the schema, change the layers to fit your particular business needs. So I think that will be really, really nice. This one is an interesting one. How many of you know about the item details assistant? A few of you. How many of you hate metadata? A lot of you. Typically, people who hate metadata love this assistant. Yeah? Because we all understand how important it is to have good metadata. Okay? So I'll give you a quick demo of this one. Here, I have a layer. This is a feature layer. It has a cryptic name. Fortunately, it's not test 001. It's a cryptic name. It doesn't have a summary, doesn't have a description, it doesn't have tags. It's so common, so embarrassing at the same time. Yeah? Because imagine anyone who runs into this layer is like, what do I do with this, right? We need metadata. So I get it. It's kind of painful to complete the metadata all manually. So now you can click on Suggest. That's the item details assistant. This is going to take the data schema, is going to sample the data, is going to get as much information as possible, and then run it through a large language model to generate the title, the summary, and such. So look, compare my cryptic name with the name that it came up with. How did it do it? It's magic. That's what technology is all about, right? Has to be magical. Look at the summary, look at the description. This feature service provides detailed records of crime incidents reported to the Los Angeles Police Department from this date to that date. Feature layer, what fields, what's the coverage, what are the use cases? Look, it even created the tags for you. So now if you are happy, and you may not be happy, but that's the whole thing, you can edit this if you like, you can now save it. Yeah, so now you have a much more decent item. Not only humans, but very soon machines, if you care about the happiness of machines, will be much happier with this metadata. This is me saying, if you want your data to be AI ready, this is the direction you want to take. If a human is going to get confused when they look at this, the machine is going to get confused too. So this is important for AI. But there is more. This layer has 20 fields, but it could have 300 fields. Look at the alias names. How many times you go into a pop-up and you see really disgusting and cryptic field names? I really hate that. It doesn't have to be like that. So with this assistant, you can suggest proper field aliases, and it does really an amazing job. I would like you to try this when you are back in the office. Even when you are back in the hotel room, you should try this out. It takes a little bit, but it's really worth the wait, because imagine if I had to do that manually, it will take me a long time. This in half a minute will give me fairly decent suggestions, you'll see. No questions, huh? Yes?
Do we need to be, can have access to the API so that we can
Great question. You are now going to the next level, right? It's like, I want an API so I can run this through every layer. We are there too in our brains, but we believe that we need to let this run for a while. We really want to listen your feedback. Once we feel confident that 99 times out of 100, this is like just good, then every time you publish a new CSV file, we will run this when you publish a new item. And of course, through the API, you could just run this automatically across your items. So I'll take the question in just a second. I just want to point out a couple of things. You had time to kind of read, right, some of these descriptions. They are actually really good. Who guessed that CRMCD meant crime code? I didn't. MO codes, modus operandi code. So it's kind of, it really understands. And there was one here, look, the area field is a numeric field. So I thought, area field, numeric, square miles. Turns out, it's the patrol area code. And look, in the field category, it said, this is a type. The values, even though those are numbers, these represent types or categories within the field. They don't represent quantities, right? For quantities, we have other options here. But it really understood the meaning of that particular field, which I thought was really nice. So now again, you can edit, you can select the fields that you want to save, you click save, and it's all done. Yes, question here.
Referring back to the notebook, say you make a really nice script. It's pretty complex, you want to keep it, and then later on you want to extend it. Can you refer to that code set?
Beautiful question. So the question is regarding the previous one, right? Notebooks. Say I create a beautiful script and I want to refine it. I want to build on top of it. Can I use this code and ask the LLM to build on top of it? So what you would do today is to bring the code into your prompt, right? So you would say, I'm going to pass you a bunch of code, I want you to do this and that, and then ask the system to generate. I want to, some of you may have played already with this notion of vibe coding and all of that, where you are really establishing a conversation, yeah? The notebooks assistant, the arcade assistant don't allow you to do conversations. No, I'm sorry about that, yes? This is not conversational, it's like one shot. You ask, and then we generate the code. I'm serious, yes. So just keep that in mind. Will we bring conversation into all of this? Maybe in the future, yes? One step at a time. Great questions. One more.
This one now in the feature there, right? So is the beta existing, but is this possible to have the map layers and apps?
Nice question. So the question is related to what type of items does this assistant support? So at this moment it supports feature layers, phase 1, yes? But now we are thinking web maps, applications, really any item in ArcGIS. Just like the API, those are things that we want to add into the future. Just for context, this assistant is 2 weeks old. Like we literally released the beta, like the first release, in the last ArcGIS Online update, okay? So this is fairly new. But we are excited and we'll definitely grow it with your feedback. And that's exactly what I meant, like where do we take these assistants, right? So let's do this together. We will have a beta so we can evolve it. Okay, so one more? Yes?
What large language models are under the hood? Are there different ones for different assistants?
Great question. What large language models are powering these assistants? It depends. That's why we have the transparency cards, right? So for example, the arcade assistant uses a fine-tuned model based on GPT-4.1, if I'm not mistaken. And that fine-tuned model is hosted within ArcGIS Online. But the notebooks assistant uses a different LLM model. So it really depends. Like the BI analyst uses a very small model. So there are various models, and again, they are documented in the transparency cards. Okay, so assistants in private beta. There is one, ArcGIS Pro. So if you are wanting to test the Pro Assistant and you go to the early adopter, you won't see it. You won't see the opportunity to test it, right? Why? Because the betas that are private are by invitation only. So there is a QR code in this screen. You can scan it and request access to the program if you like. Or alternatively, you can go to the showcase area, connect with the Pro people and say, hey, I would like to download this assistant and try it. So there is that. It's not available right away in the early adopter. This assistant, you need to install on top of 3.6, yeah? And the setup, again, is in the early adopter website. It does a bunch of things. It allows you to ask questions to the documentation right within Pro. You don't have to go to a web browser. Allows you to generate query layers, knowledge graphs, and then it has this notion of trigger common actions. So I'll show you that through a demo. So let's pretend that you want to find an asset in this utility network in Pro. How would you do it without the assistant and with the assistant? So without the assistant, I would personally go through the table of contents and look for the layer, in this case transformers. Then select the tool I want to use, select by attributes, and configure the where statement. There is nothing wrong with this, that's how it goes. With the assistant, it's different. You open the assistant and you say, find transformer with asset ID, blah. Finds the layer, the tool pre-configures, and once you know that this is good, you click OK, and it executes the tool. This assistant is also useful to with tedious repetitive tasks. For example, imagine I want to turn off every layer with low voltage assets. I need to go manually check them on, or say hide all low voltage layers. And just like that, it turned off 10 layers that have low voltage assets in them. Yeah? You like that? So there are lots of different things that you can do through this assistant like this. That's kind of the spirit of the assistant. As you can see, is not going to really do a complex suitability analysis. No, it's going to guide you or help you navigate the tools in ArcGIS Pro so you can get things done more quickly. So again, for everyday users, there is value, but also for people who are getting started with Pro, they get intimidated with so many tools. This might be a great thing.
Capability of suggesting geoprocessing tools to help with your process?
So the question is, will it suggest geoprocessing tools? In this little demo, it suggested a geoprocessing tool, right? Like select by attributes. But if you say, I want to find assets that are within 500 meters from the selected features, it will pop the buffer tool. Yes? The spatial statistics team, spatial analysis team, I should say, is also working on making this assistant like more, more academic. Like you can ask like harder, more complex questions about spatial analysis and use a corpus of GIS knowledge so you can get answers and recommendations as to how to go about particular geospatial complex workflows. There is one aspect of this assistant that is quite unique, and it is the extensibility. You can literally extend the ArcGIS Pro Assistant. What do you mean by extending? I mean that when you enter a prompt, the assistant is trying to understand your intent, and then is launching a tool, is opening, turning on a layer. So imagine you could write business logic pretty much like you would with an add-in in ArcGIS Pro through the Pro SDK, and then have this business logic be described in plain terms. So the assistant could invoke your add-in, your business logic, just like we invoke a GP tool or we turn a layer on and off. So for some workflows that are quite unique to your business and your everyday tasks, this could be quite a thing, right? Where people can speak your language, your jargon, and launch these custom workflows through the assistant. Yes, question?
We use a lot of web command to input PDF from data into general data. Do you have a system to automatically upload the PDF and automatically generate?
Okay, great question. So in your case, and I think this is not unique, you have a lot of information in PDFs. This could be PDFs, this could be photos, images, right? Unstructured information, text. And you want to get information out of it and load it as useful GIS features. So do we have an assistant for that, right? So we don't have an assistant for that, but tomorrow in the plenary, watch out for the Python API demo. Because we will demonstrate how the API is being extended with AI utilities, functions that can invoke AI to do certain things, like computer vision, natural language processing, and so on and so forth. So this, I think, is the path to go. It's like I go into notebooks, I create a Python script that looks at the attachments in this layer and runs this prompt. And then the responses, I use them to create attributes in my layer. Or maybe I go to this directory with PDF files and I start creating features, through calls to AI models to interpret the information in such PDF files. Yeah. Okay. So as you saw, the philosophy here with the assistants is, one, we are not bringing radically new functionality into the applications. Is simply streamlining everyday use of the applications, onboarding people so they get the best out of the software. The other thing is that many of these assistants have the advantage of context. We know the application you are using. You know you have a layer with 3 elements selected. This is all very useful for us to do the right things. In Arcade, for example, when you are building an expression to calculate a field like we did, we know what field or what, not the field, but we know what layer you are working with. In fact, remember that calculation where we said, for the incidence layer, do a pointing polygon query to the parks and blah, blah, blah. So the assistant understands that you are working with this web map. So it's looking for things in your web map that relate to your intent. And that's how we can actually create code that works. Not just kind of like a long shot of the code where you can insert your own strings. No, the code actually works because we know the name of your fields, we know the name of your layers, etc. So that context is really important. And ultimately, you saw this across all the demos. We suggest things for you. You ultimately need to review and execute. So you cannot blame the assistant. Yes? So this is pretty much what I wanted to share. We didn't see every assistant, but we saw a lot of them. We do have time for a few questions. Yes?
So how do these enterprise AI assistants function like in a containerized environment? So say you have, is the LLM embedded in?
Great question. How do these assistants work in my completely disconnected environment? Since I don't have access to ArcGIS Online, there is no LLM, so these assistants don't work. Well, as I described in the enterprise roadmap, we will give you a choice in 12.2 to point the assistants to your own hosted LLM. Yes? Maybe we take questions from online?
Yes. We have a few. One was from Brian. Will you be able to bring your own model to both ArcGIS Online and Enterprise or just Enterprise? And if so, will it be a curated list of models from Esri or a function call to a fully custom model?
Okay, so the question relates to the model, right? The LLM. So we had a brief discussion about every assistant uses a different LLM. This complicates things, right? When it comes to you hosting your own LLMs, you will have to go along with the LLMs that we certify. You cannot use any LLM. You need to use an LLM that we have validated that actually works with the implementation of the assistant. Yep. More questions here in the room. We'll take two more. One.
You said earlier the cost has not been set for these tools that are currently available. That was your brief, right?
Yeah, the question is about the cost. I said before the cost has not been set. Yes, we will announce the cost, the licensing in June. But I can anticipate already that ArcGIS Online credits are not in our thinking. Yeah? We want everyone with a user type, we want them to have access to the assistants, right? So there will be questions about how many capabilities you are going to get on each user type and how much capacity you will have to run many tasks.
What's available now?
What is available now you can use, don't even think about cost, we will eat it all up, right? Because this is the moment again for you to test, to tell us what works, what doesn't, and get it right. In fact, if there is an assistant that is useless, we won't release it. It's useless, right? So that's going to take us some time. It's not going to happen overnight. But again, once they are in GA, our thinking is, you have a user type, you got the assistant. One more.
Using ArcGIS Pro extensively and use the enterprise version. And we mentioned that most of these agents are available with the online version currently. Is the ArcGIS Pro also related somehow to the enterprise? It's totally separate.
Okay, so great question. When will you support ArcGIS Pro Assistant in ArcGIS Enterprise? 12.2. 12.2. Yeah, 12.2 is November this year. That's the target. November this year. Thank you very much for your time. If you have like a question you cannot wait for, we will be here. We can answer more questions. Thank you.